Hello, everyone. Good evening. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm Asaf Gamza. I'm Director of Education for United. We're very happy to have you here. We're going to wait 2 more minutes just to see give more people the opportunity to join us, and we're going to start in 2 minutes. All right, everyone. Hello, good evening. We'll start. As I said, I'm Asaf Gamzu, Director of Education for United. We're very happy to have you here. This is the Ministry for Diaspora Affairs and Combating Anti-Semitism briefing. I want to take this opportunity to Prisma and Paul Bernstein, Mark Wolf, and Daniel Infeld, who reached out and helped us set up the registration and the security for this and all the technical side for this Zoom. What we're going to do is we're going to start with an IDF spokesperson, Lieutenant Fay Goldstein, give us a briefing about where we are now in Q&A with her, and then after that, we'll hopefully hear from the minister who's currently serving in the reserves, but he said he'll be with us, and we're very happy to have him, and hopefully he'll be here. And after that, we'll move on to Ayelet Shmuel, who's the director of the Resilience Center at Sderot, to talk about tools and practicalities in these horrible times for educators and community leaders. Now, everyone is muted. For our French speakers, we have the wonderful help of Sarah Wagman, who will be translating in the chat. I apologize her for any spelling mistake, which will have to do with that. Anyone who wants to ask a question when we have the Q&A, please raise your hand and I'll make sure that we get to you. Thank you so much again for coming. Just before we start, I want to say that in these extremely hard times, seeing the Jewish people take the time to come to these sort of meetings and briefings is truly heartwarming. It is shutfut goral of the highest regard, and it is truly points of light in these dark, dark times. So I want to thank you for coming. Fay, please take it away.
Yeah, thank you. It's incredible. I spent a lot of years actually prior to my Army service being in the world of education as well. And I really just, it's so important to be in this world and to be able to understand kind of what's going on. And one of the hardest things sometimes I remember from being on the outside was not being able to have an insider, quick understanding view of kind of what's going on here. And that's kind of my goal right now is, like we had said, you know, you are all here because you know what's going on, right? You're here in this conversation because you're concerned about Israel. So what I'd like to do is take a little bit of a more immediate view, not necessarily go through the entire history of what happened over the last week, but go in a little bit and dive a little bit deeper into where are we holding right now. But that being said, you know, I am actually also a reserve soldier here. I along with 300,000 others, have either been called up or came voluntarily to serve right now in this time. And I'm here today, actually in central Israel, but for the past few days, I've been down south. So I have seen with my very own eyes the atrocities in Kibbutz Be'eri, the massacre that had happened with the music festival. Over 260 bodies were found there. Kfar Aza, the devastation in that community, and you know, it's overwhelming as an IDF soldier, as a Jewish person here living in Israel, as a woman. You have all seen those stories of the abductions, but really as a human. And I think that's something that's really important. I think even from the educational perspective is humanizing this. And we'll get into that a little bit after. But right now, where are we holding, right? So, there's been incessant rocket fire over the last, since it started October 7th at 6:30 a.m., which it started with rockets blaring. Sirens. I was actually at that point in Jerusalem, and I was woken up at 8 a.m. by rockets in Jerusalem. It started at 6:30 a.m. at the same time of rockets being fired from Hamas in Gaza. There was an land, air, and sea breach by Hamas terrorists, with a very, very planned and very well coordinated attack against Israel. And again, you have, I'm sure, all seen the devastation of within the photos and the videos and the posts and the things that you're sharing from that massacre that took place on Simchat Torah and continued on and is continuing on right now with the rockets and the terrorists even still inside of Israel. But since then, there have been 1,200 Israelis that were murdered. More than 90 have been abducted. And I'm sure, again, you've seen those visuals as well. More than 3,000 have been injured. We've been fired at with more than 5,000 rockets. And as of today, more than 222 IDF soldiers have been killed in action. But let's focus right now. We're shifting a little bit from recognizing, and the world will shift too. And this is something that's important to discuss a little bit later. But we're right now, we are shifting from this being a surprise attack, which happened early in the morning with a massive bombardment, to now being on the offensive. Now we are striking back. And this is kind of where we're focusing. And this is where the shift is, where we've struck over 3,600 Hamas targets in Gaza. And there have been 1,000 terrorists that were killed here in Israel. There were thousands of Hamas militants that breached the border and came through. There are some that are still even being found right now and still being captured and killed by Israeli forces. There are no longer effective breaches through the security fence. It is being repaired, and is almost the repair of the fence there has almost completed. But there are still terrorists in Israel, and there are still terrorists in different communities, and there are still terrorists on the road. Yesterday, I was with a team of the spokespeople, as well as I think about 100 foreign journalists. And on our way back, there were terrorists that were captured, that were on the roads, that were incidents that are happening, and we continue to hear about them. And that's really one of the primary concerns when you're looking at what the IDF is focusing on, is both this offensive striking of Hamas targets in Gaza, and I'll go into a little bit about what are we focusing on in that space. But even more so is still the need and the necessity to secure Israeli communities here in Israel, because of the insane amount of terrorists that did cross over. We need to make sure that we're still actively on the defense when it comes to that as well. So when we're striking these Hamas terrorists in Gaza, there's a specific, over the past 2 days, a specific focus on Hamas's Nukhba commando force. It's a commando force, part of the Al-Qassam brigades. And we are very much, and I just actually realized you're trying to translate to French at the exact same time as I'm speaking in English, and I'm an incredibly fast native English speaker. So if you do need me to slow down for a few seconds, maybe the French translator give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and I will.
So she wrote, it's difficult in English. So let's assume you can talk a bit slower. Yes, please.
Okay, great. I apologize for that. Yes, I tend to want to try to get as much information as possible, because sometimes I feel that when you have more information at your hands, and I'm sure again as educators you feel this, the more you have in your hand as numbers and knowledge, you have more of an ability or more of a confidence. I always found the more you know, the more confident you are to speak about these things. So do we want to go backwards? Do we want me to go through some of those numbers again, or some of that information again, or are we good where we're holding right now? I'm asking this casually because I think there's still an intimate number of people here. We're still under 100. Do we want to repeat, or do we're okay moving forward? What do you suggest?
I think we're okay moving forward.
Okay, fantastic. So going forward, we're focusing specifically on Hamas's Nokhba commando unit. And along with other targets in Gaza, but those were the focus of the past few days. And recently, the most recent targets that we had struck were aerial detection systems that were placed in civilian water heaters, focused specifically on a senior Hamas naval operative. We struck one of the finance managers of Hamas, and are striking and focusing on command and control centers. And one of the interesting things that I think is particularly relevant for this group here is our focus on and our strike against Gaza University, because it was used as an R&D center, an intel training facility for a lot of these Hamas terrorists. And we see this weave of this world of education, of where you can take spaces as being educators, how you can bring that forward within your spaces, and when it goes wrong, and when you see the destruction that has become because of this way of educating the Hamas militants, but also even the young children within these spaces. It's just something I always found I find as an interesting point to really think about, and we'll talk about how to take that forward with your communities. Again, like we had said, we're focusing right now on those specific arenas where we have defending Israeli communities still from the Hamas infiltrations, from potential attacks, and from continued and incessant rocket fire. We're striking back and having a very, very strong offensive focus on where Hamas is, on disabling Hamas, so that they will never, ever be able to do this again. And we know that the world will be shifting more towards seeing that second part, right? They're going to forget very quickly. We see that the news, and this is something that I'm experiencing and the spokespeople are experiencing right now, is that the news is shifting already. They're already forgetting the devastation of October 7th. They're already forgetting these images and these visuals and these photos and these stories. And they're already moving the story just to Israel strikes against Gaza, and forgetting why we are striking, why we're doing what we're doing, and why it is absolutely imperative and so extremely necessary to make a change, and to make sure that Hamas again never has the ability to commit what they've done, to commit another massacre, to kill Israelis incessantly. So we can open this up either for questions, or we can move forward to like, what can you do? And I think this is just a timing question. I think there's a lot that you can do, but we can do what you think.
Fay, if we can open up the Q&A now. If there are any questions, please raise your hand. I would like to have the opportunity for people to ask what's on their hearts and minds.
Do we want to open the Q&A? Are we typing in the questions? Or?
So Sam Thurgood, Daniel, can you help me unmute Sam so we can ask the question?
Thank you very much. My question is, what's the thinking around the end game at this point? Yes, we disable Hamas, but it's not like Gaza's tomorrow going to become a democracy in peace with Israel.
Yes, I can't say exactly what the big end game is, because we don't know. We don't know exactly where this will lead. We don't exactly know where Hamas will take it. We don't know exactly which other players in the arena will be coming in. Our goal right now is to defend Israelis in Israel. And our goal right now is to dismantle Hamas so that they can never do anything like this again. And so that Hamas is no longer able to come and murder Israelis. So the big picture end game, I don't think any of us really can say, because of how much things change and the volatility of this space. But our end game right now as the IDF is to ensure the safety and security of every Israeli, as well as to dismantle and ensure that Hamas can never do something like this again.
Thank you, Fay. Do we have more questions? All right. So now, unfortunately, the minister was probably, we call this akpatsa. I have no idea how to translate it to English or French. He's in the reserves and he had to go somewhere. So we're going to move on to the next part. But before that, Fay, I want to thank you so much for your time, for your service. I want to wish you, the people of Israel, and the Jewish people only good news. Rak bsorot tovot.
Amen. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. So I've just gotten news that the minister won't be able to attend. So I'm going to ask Margarita Spichko-Shine from the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs. No, she's here to say a few words on behalf of the ministry. Hey, Margarita.
Can you hear me? Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Margarita Spichko-Shine. I'm the head of the Diaspora Division in the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs. Many of you I know, and I'm very happy to see all the familiar faces and see all the new faces. And thank you so much for joining us. It's hard to speak on behalf of the ministry at this point. We're having a very hard time, even just personally, to come to work every day and really, I think, manage to go beyond what is happening and beyond our personal feelings but it's very it helps us to know that what we're doing is very, very important. I think especially now more than ever. And we're incredibly grateful that you are here at this moment, but also here in general. And I think the ministry has always been very, our agenda is always not what you can do for the ministry or what you can do for the state of Israel, but what the state of Israel can do for you. Our main goal is always to strengthen the Jewish communities around the world. That's what we always do. This has always been our logo, our tagline. This is the way we see our mission on day-to-day basis. With that being said, I think now we're in a bit of a different situation. I think this is the first time now we're really asking you to do something for us. I think you like, this is the I would say, like, this is our hour. This is a sha'ah, and I hope you understand the godel sha'ah, like Asaf, help me here.
The magnificence of the hour. Magnificence, not in a positive way.
Yeah, not in a positive way. I think this is the time we need all the Jewish communities of the diaspora to really strap in and fight this fight alongside the state of Israel. We're all hurting. I know all of you are hurting with us, and we're incredibly moved. Like, I don't think I'm saying this on a personal level. I don't think there's been anything more strengthening to us than to see this incredible, just the strength of the Jewish community around the world coming around this and strengthening us. Just to see the pictures, we always get, like, we get hundreds and hundreds of videos and pictures of around the world of Jews singing Hatikva, and it's just, I really can't imagine something more strengthening to us than this, really. And I don't think it's just to me as sort of a diaspora person who deals that on a day-to-day basis, but I think it's just for everyone, to all Am Israel. I think it's incredible to see this, and I think it's really gives us the biggest morale that we can ask for. And I think we need you from now on to do this and more. I think as time goes by, it's going to get more difficult. I'm a little bit, Fay talked about this a little bit before, but I think we might, like the strength of the support that we're getting from the world community might decrease with time. And I think this is it's going to be your mission just as well. It's ours to support us, to keep supporting us, to do everything in your powers to bring anyone to see what happened here, and to understand that what we're doing is right, and we will come stronger from this incredible strategy. And I really, really thank you all for being here. And Am Israel Chai.
Israel Chai. Thank you, Margarita. Thank you, and thank you for all your work. I now want to take us to our main speaker for today, Ayelet Shmuel. Ayelet is the director of the International Resilience Center at Sderot. Ayelet trains professional and paraprofessional teams in the country and the Gaza envelope in the field of psychological first aid. She works with clients dealing with war trauma and ongoing stress. She was part of the mental health professional team in the Sderot Resilience Center and is currently its leader. We brought Ayelet to help us with concrete professional advice in dealing with our schools, with our communities, with families in our communities. Ayelet, I discovered today, also lived for 18 years in the States and was actually a teacher at a Jewish day school. So she brings that as well to this to our discussion today. Like before, we will hear Ayelet, and then we'll open a Q&A, and you can raise your hands. So thank you, Ayelet. Take it away.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm not going to repeat everything that was said. I'm not the head of the Resilience Center in Sderot. I'm the head of the international one. Those are two different entities that work together. But right now, with this craziness that is going on, living in the States and being a part of a Denver Jewish Day School, I realized really, really fast the connection between what's happening in Israel and what's happening in the school. The connection is immediate. If there's a war in Israel, you can split in your school immediately. Sometimes just because you're so connected, and sometimes because you have Israeli families there, and sometimes because you have, maybe you live in the States, but your son decided to join the military, or your daughter, and maybe they're doing a year of Aliyah or a year of Ulpan. There's so many connections between your communities in Israel that it's not possible to not feel the waves of trauma and pain all the way to you. So this is the first time that this country has dealt with this kind of an event, this kind of on that scale. This is our 9/11, this is our Holocaust. You call it whatever you want to call it. However, my job here today is to talk about resiliency. Because as the officer was talking about before, the tables have turned. We have moved from defense to offense. And the minute we realize that we're having this kind of a trauma on our hand, we as therapists and as mental health professionals moved and switched immediately to starting our defense lines, which is mental health intervention, and now into this offense on trauma, which is working and doing everything that we can to give mental health support to our people. Now, I'm not going to talk to you about mental health interventions, on an individual level. As a community, I think we're all hurting. And I think a school is one of the most major anchors in a community. So the community right now, I'm sure you're seeing it. You're seeing it with your staff. You're seeing it with your students. You're seeing it in synagogues. Everyone is hurting. And this is the time to switch, to find our strengths, Because this is a marathon, it is not a sprint. We're here for the long haul. We're here to be able to be resilient for a long period of time. Because we're very aware of the situation. We know that the last person that died is not the last one on our list. We are aware of it. Now, how do you deal with it with kids? What do you do with that with your staff? How do you hold people together? What do you do? So I want to talk about a few things, and hopefully this will be helpful. So one thing, the first one is in our terms, in mental health professionals' terms, we talk about shared reality. The first thing is that we're all in the same reality. We're all hurting, different levels of hurt, but we're all hurting and we're all under this reality. In Israel, it's a national tragedy. On an international platform, I think we're all in agreement that it is an international tragedy at this point, from all the responses that we're getting from different countries. So we're all under the same reality, and some of us are more connected and some of us less connected. Use that. Use it for connection. Use it for empathy, and not for destruction, and not for something that will break you. People are very sad, and that is okay. If you're not going to be sad now, when will you be sad? If you're not going to hurt now, when are you going to hurt? Use it for empathy. Use it to strike connections and make them stronger, rather for people to be sinking into their sadness, okay? These kind of traumas, especially on national and international levels, you're able to kind of grab your community together. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, how do you talk about it? You cannot let, this educate your kids, educate your people, or do the process for them. I'm sorry, but every kid that I know these days has TikTok, has Instagram, has all these wonderful apps that exposes them to unbelievable content. And our job is to step in. I'm not talking about what to do with it itself, with the machinery itself. I'm talking for a second of you as educators to take a stand, to take a role, and talk about everything that is going on and process it instead of letting the media do it for you. If you want to have resilience, you need to control what you can control and let go what you can't. Right? Rule number one in uncertain times, take control of what you can. You have access to students, you have access to parents, make sure your parents are in. Make sure that everyone is in it together. If you could have an assembly, have everyone together, the teachers, the parents, the kids, and not shy away from processing this. Do not shy away from being able to talk about it. Now, I'm going to be more specific. Talking about it is not just saying it's horrible. It is horrific. That's not helpful. Processing it is asking someone which part is really the one that struck you the most. Allow kids and allow teachers and allow parents to be more specific, because it's overwhelming. There's so much going on. There's so much trauma. You have to be able to be more specific. And I have to tell you, some people are going to tell you it's the images of the kids. Some people are going to tell you it's the hostages, people that were kidnapped. Some people are going to say it's the images of women that I cannot deal, okay? I have to tell you, I've been watching, I'm really trying to hold it together. And, I just found out half an hour ago that the daughter of a friend of mine was murdered in one of these attacks. It is very, very devastating, no matter where you go. I have to tell you, I watched a lot of images, and I thought that I will be, falling apart from all these images. And you know what got to me? You never know where the trigger is. They just released a video of a dog running to attack them, to protect the house, and they shot the dog. And when I saw that, I almost fell apart. because that was the first line of defense, the first active line of defense that fell, right? So what I'm trying to say is that everybody has a different point in a different place in a different trigger. Do not assume that you know it. Make sure your counselors at the school don't assume that they know what it is, and create as much connection as possible and allow conversations. Now, in mental health interventions, you do not let people sink without pulling them out. Okay, I'm giving you like all these guidelines because we don't have a lot of time, but this is one of the major guidelines that we have for a mental health intervention. I'm not talking about trauma work. I'm not talking about psychotherapy. I'm talking about the intervention itself. Your job as heads of school is to connect people to functional continuity. They need to do something. They have to be able to be active. When people are functional, when they're doing something, when they're volunteering, when they have a sense of meaning, they are able to do better. That's rule number one. Rule number two, in times of trauma, it's acute trauma. And right now it's acute because the images keep on flowing and it's happening all the time. It's acute. It's been acute for a few days. Every time someone is in their limbic system, right, in this emotional state, you want to let them be there for a little bit, say it, cry it, talk about it, and then you switch them into what do you want to do right now? What would help you? What do you want to do about it? How are we going to help someone else? Anything that is active. And I'm telling you right now, it sounds simple. It's not so simple when someone is falling apart. And second, do it first with your colleagues. Usually the staff is the first one to miss. We're so worried for the kids that we forget our staff. If the staff is not regulated, if the staff is not grounded, the kids are not going to be grounded. You guys know this as people that run a school. We have to go first for the staff, make sure that they have enough support and the ability to talk about it. Make sure that you switch them all the time. Allow them to talk and then switch them to action. So the talk and the emotions are probably going to be in the teacher's lounge, right? When they go to the school, when they go to the classroom, they're going to have to be in action mode. That's their action mode. And really, that's what takes care of people. In the city of Sderot, we have CERT teams, community emergency response teams. We have a lot of them, and I train all of them, actually. And one of the things that we've learned is that people that are scared the most, they have a job or a role during a rocket attack. They put their vest on. Here, I'll show you my little vest, right? My vest on. And all of a sudden, they have a meeting and they have a role and they can do anything. They leave the house to help other people during a rocket attack. Today I was driving. I live in Ashkelon and I work in Sderot, and I was driving on that road. It's a very dangerous road. It's the only one that is open. All the other roads are closed. The only thing that keeps me is the fact that I have a role. I have a job. I have a meeting. Okay? So translate that in your school. Now, knowing Jewish American schools, I'm sorry, but I'm so connected to you guys and I love you guys because I know what you do in these times. I was in the States when Katrina hit, and I was in the States in September 11th. And I remember the amount of volunteering and the amount of support and the ability to write banners, right? And to collect things and to send things. And there's a reason for it. Now, whatever your orientation, whatever school orientation you have, use that. If it's more religious, do more prayers, write prayers, ask the kids to pray, ask the kids to maybe think about an individual that was lost and channel their prayers their way, okay? Whatever that is, find something that has a meaning to the population that you're working with. Now, there was another thing that was, asked of me is to say, what do I do with a staff that is not Jewish? How do I connect them to this? And I have to tell you, when I worked in Denver Jewish Day School, even the staff that wasn't Jewish, they were super connected because they have to celebrate the holidays with us, right? They have to be there for all the main events. They know all the bar mitzvahs and the bat mitzvahs. They're very connected. And you want to go for what you have already, for the connection that you already have, and use that rather than go for the connection that you don't have. Don't try and build something new. Work off on something that you already have. And if you want to use, the best word to use right now is human. Anyone that is a human being, anyone that is a human will be able to empathize with the Jewish people and what's happening right now in Israel. Use the word humanity. If you want to not deal with any political stuff or any whatever agenda, don't create any resistance. Talk about the humanity piece of it. And people will be right there with you. Okay? Every teacher that I've seen many teachers in my life, and I don't know a teacher that doesn't have a favorite child, a favorite kid, a favorite student, a favorite family. Create those connections through them. Okay? In the school, and I don't know how much of it you have, and I don't know exactly what I've been talking to people in the States, but we've been so busy here that I didn't get a chance to hear the nuances. So I would like to allow a lot of time for questions, if it's possible. I want to talk about the media for a second and the exposure to media. We know as mental health professionals that exposure can do a lot of damage. Okay. Now we don't know the risk factors of the people that we live next to sometimes. And here's what I mean by it. Maybe maybe somebody had childhood trauma in their lives. So their risk factor is already there. They already have an underlying trauma. And by exposing them again and again and again to these horrible stories, they might be triggered and this thing could start bleeding. Okay, you're going to start seeing emotional bleeding and maybe even PTSD from that. So our job is really to be very careful, even when we talk in the classrooms, to make sure that you don't bring too many gory details, that you spare the kids and the families from the horrible, horrible stories. I'm telling you, not everybody has to know everything. Whatever we know right now, I think is enough. Now, encourage. Don't take this away. You won't be able to do it. Even to say, hey, take their phones away, you're not going to be able to do it. Encourage. Encourage to have parental control. Encourage to have TikTok just removed for 2 weeks until this will calm down. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, let's take the TikTok out. Instagram for 2-3 weeks, not more than that. This you can do with your younger crowd and with the parents. With the teenagers, piece of advice, and this is how I do it. I always ask them, we know that there's a risk by exposing yourself to these images. Are you aware of the risk? Yeah, I know, but I don't care. I really want to know. And here's where I ask, what is it that you really want to know that you don't know already? That's the question. And I don't say it in a judgmental way. What is it that you still want to know that you don't know already? What are you digging for? Because we need to know. Because once you know it, once you have it, maybe you will stop. And they're going to say, I want to know what they've done. And I will ask. If it's a teenager, I will ask. Do you know enough horrible things to give you enough ammunition right now to go to the world and protect Israel, right? On social media. Do you have enough ammunition? Do you really need more? Ask them, talk to them. We have to treat the teenagers like they know what they're doing. and with respect. And when someone really wants to know something, I want to know why they want to know it. How many killed babies do they need to look at in order for them to actually get enough? I have to tell you, if you start talking to them, just talking to them and ask them, what is it that you really still need to see? What do you think you're going to get out of it? What is your goal? Ask people, what is your goal? And you will start hearing them maybe shifting. Okay? The question for all of us is, what is your goal? As a community, as a school, in order to recover, you have to ask yourself, what's my short-term goal? What's my long-term goal? Now, I've been doing this in the States, and I'm working with the communities in Detroit, and I'm working with the communities in Cleveland. And we're talking about active shooters, you know, and what's going to happen if they're going to be active shooters, and how we're going to recover. And one of the questions that I always have, two questions. What's your short-term goal for recovery? What's your long-term goal for recovery? How does that look like? You guys are in it with us. When we'll recover, you'll recover too. We're going to do it together. And your fight is a little different. But in the US, you've been fighting anti-Semitism for a long time. It's been a pretty rough ride in the past 2-3 years. So you want to ask yourself, what is my goal for my community, for my school? I'm looking at the school as a community. And if you have a short-term goal, for example, to make sure that all my kids are stabilized, that the families that are hurting are stabilized, that everybody has a connection. For example, every family that I know that is at risk already has a family that supports them, that the school counselor has, knows what they're doing and kind of flag the identified patients, right? The people that need more help. Whatever it is, make a list of what is your short-term goal of recovery. How does that look like? The plan. And then look at the long-term goal. Right? In the short-term goals, usually we also have ceremonial stuff, right? Vigils and stuff like that. Look at the long-term goal and ask yourself, in 6 months, what am I doing with this incident? How are we going to remember it? What are we going to do with it? What are we going to learn from it? And so on. I have to tell you, we don't have school working. The educational system in Israel is shut down for the past week. And we just had holidays, right? We had our kids at home for, I don't know, over here it's about 21 days straight that they were home. They were supposed to go back to school after Simchat Torah, and now they're home again. Think about how stressful it is for parents. I have a brother that lives really close by. He's a judge. He is still working from home, issuing warrants, doing things. He has 3 little kids with him that have not seen school for 21 days. And now they're in school, they're at home with rockets flying, and they cannot be in the yard because the yard is dangerous, could be dangerous. So you're very lucky to have the educational system going. Use it. It's an amazing platform. Israel decided to use that platform starting Sunday to start connecting the kids. Everybody kind of got their bearings, removed from defense to offense. And now there's a little bit more safety and we can start doing that. So what I want to do right now is I want to stop for a second and open the platform for questions if you have it. And I do want to encourage you, if you have school counselors, make sure, or psychologists, make sure that they first are very familiar with the world of trauma. And second, that they really know mental health intervention, because it's not the same thing. And if you're going to do if you're going to use the wrong methods with people during acute stress, and we are still in acute stress, you can create damage. So I'm putting that as a red flag and a warning sign, because most people don't know. If I'm going to send someone that has been in acute trauma in Sderot right now to someone that is doing psychodynamic psychotherapy, it will probably break him. Okay? Make sure you have the right people and the right professionals by your side. If you don't, ask Jewish Family Services. They probably have somebody that has been trained. If they don't have it, go for the mental health department, whatever in the city, and ask for people that have been trained. If you don't have them, talk to us. I will train your people. You need to train parents, you need to train staff, you need to train your people. I'm pledging help. If you guys need it, I will do it. We'll do a Zoom and we'll give them some guidelines because you want to make sure that your people are getting the right response. I'm going to say the last thing. As principals, you're holding a ton of responsibility on your shoulders. Make sure that you too have a colleague to talk to. And going home to my husband or to my wife is not enough. You need people that do the same work that you do, that understand the stress, that you can bounce things off them, and they can do this for you. There's power in connectedness, there's power in our community, and you need to use them. Okay? So I'm going to open up the floor right now, and hopefully you guys have either remarks or questions or whatever you need.
Ayelet, thank you so much. That was very good. And I'm also committing to the pledge that schools that feel they need to hear more of this and want to have more will set up more webinars, conversations, materials, whatever people need to help them, to help schools and communities to go through this. Now, if you have any questions, please raise your hands. So we have from Jacqueline. I would like to ask, what are some recommendations or ideas? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I lost the chat.
Yeah, I lost the chat as well.
Well, can you just open the microphone so we can have a conversation?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that okay?
Jacqueline, if you can just come out and ask what you wanted to ask.
Yes.
Hi.
I'm ready. Thank you very much, Ayelet. I would like to know which kind of recommendations or ideas we can do for a long time terms, or not the short objectives. We already done that, but in the large period of time, which recommendations do you have for us?
So I'm going to ask you, when you do something like this, the first question that you have is, if you have a vision, if you can look into the future 6 months from now, how will you know that your school has recovered? What needs to happen? As a principal, ask yourself that question. Really, it's not an easy question to answer, by the way. In 6 months from now, if my school has recovered, how does it look like? If you know how to answer that, you will be able to go from there backwards and to set up your goals, right? And to set up your mission. Everybody is different. Every community is different. But this is not an easy task. I have to tell you, I'm asking this community leaders, not just schools. And I'm asking it heads of municipalities in the States, and I'm asking them. There was a mass shooting of 25 kids, okay, in a school, okay. If your community has recovered a year from now, what are the signs of recovery and how does it look like? So maybe it means that you're going to hear less chatter in the corridor, in the hallways. Maybe people will be talking about it less and less. Maybe during parent-teacher conferences, it's not going to come up. Maybe your way of measuring it is saying, I would like to see a critical or a very significant reduction in people that are asking support from the school council on that matter, right? I want to see a reduction between 30. So if right now we have 30 people that have called her, in 2 months from now, I want that number to go to 10. And 3 months after that, I want to see a 0. You have to have some measurables, really some ideas of how it looks like and how you're going to measure it. Because sometimes people are going to say, yeah, I think we're good. And you know what? People just switch from showing their symptoms in the school to showing their symptoms at home. That happens a lot. So the teachers, for example, they're going to hold it together. Because the first week it's okay to cry, right? And it's okay to excuse yourself and not function or whatever. Then you have to hold yourself together and actually go back to teaching and pretend like everything is okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to take those symptoms and you're going to use them at home. And your house is going to fall apart. So maybe your way of doing it is using some questionnaires. There are a lot of questionnaires that have to do with resiliency and with mental health, and see the scores, see where people are at. Not because we're mean and we want to know who's doing what, because we want to take care of them. We want to protect them. We want to make sure that they're okay. The easiest thing to miss is a mental health situation. First responders are a great example. They hold it together because they can't cry. They hold it together. They go to these mass casualty incidents. They see horrible things. They hold it. Everybody thinks they're okay. A year later, they commit suicide. Now, I don't think people are going to commit suicide, okay? But what I'm saying is, if you want to know that they're okay, you have to ask yourself, it's a tough question. What does that mean that they're okay 6 months from now? What do I want to see? And how do I measure it? Okay? I hope I answered you, because I did not give you a fish. I gave you a fishing pole.
Thank you. Now, I saw Margot Buller wrote, I in our school would benefit from further guidance and training, maybe a webinar for staff working in Jewish school. So we will definitely set these kind of webinars up, dedicated
Absolutely.
just for this. Are there any more questions? Does anyone want to talk?
Questions or remarks, whatever you guys need, because I don't know what it is that you guys are seeing in your hallways, in the teachers' lounges. What are the conversations in the synagogues? Because whatever is happening at the synagogue is going to spill into the school, and whatever happens in the school is going to spill into the synagogue. So, or the JCC, right? So it will be interesting to hear.
So Sam has raised his hand. Sam Thurgood.
Hi, thank you so much. Firstly, this has really been so helpful. My question is in a South African context where there's a particular anti-Israel focus, and we've got all of these solidarity rallies for the Palestinians all around us. And some of the teachers and even some of our Jewish students are feeling quite conflicted about being so pro-Israel, or, they're maybe feeling upset with Israeli aggression or the way that it's been portrayed. We even had an incident today where two of the kids got into a big fight over one of them being quite pro-Palestinian, the other one being very pro-Israeli and very upset about that child. So, yeah, what kind of guidance can you offer us for these kinds of complicated politics that make their way into the school?
I think it's super complicated. Anytime you bring politics into anything, really. But when it comes to this, it feels like for most people, or at least the sane ones, it feels that, it's easy to understand who's right and who's wrong here, right? Because the images are off. However, there's a lot of propaganda out there, and they're doing a very good job. The Palestinians have done a really good job presenting their case to the world. What they didn't do very well, or they didn't calculate, is that once those images are going to come out, they've bet themselves up. But they're never going to come out of, right? They identify themselves with Nazis and with ISIS. You can't come back from this. But that aside, when we think about these kind of things, when you have students in your school and you cannot really say much because the atmosphere on the outside is also not so safe, I encourage you to go again, like I said at the beginning, to go for the one thing that is in common for everybody. One thing in common is humanity. It's humanity. Let's talk about humanity. Let's talk about morals. Don't talk about the don'ts. Don't talk about what people have done. Don't talk about that. Talk about humanity. Talk about morals. Go for something that can connect them rather than separate them. The minute you say Palestinian or Jewish, Israeli, whatever, identity politics is not going to help you here. Identity politics is going to kill it. So right now, this is the time to find whatever it is that unites us, and that is humanity, being human and being kids. So if you were a kid right now in Israel, or if you were a kid right now in the kibbutz, what would you do? If you were a kid right now in Sderot and you were really scared, what would you do? I wouldn't go for a kid that is pro-Palestinian and tell him, well, because I wouldn't do any of that. I would ask him, if you were in Sderot, what is your advice to that kid? What would you do? Okay, I know it's very difficult. And some of these situations, you know, there's a rule, it's called 80-20. 80% of the time, you're gonna do okay. 20% of the time, nothing's gonna work. We know this as parents. I do parental guidance everywhere, you know, across the world and Israel, and the rule is always 80-20. 20% of the time, it's not gonna work no matter what you're gonna do. So you wanna be able to first adjust your expectations. These are crazy times. These are crazy times. Some of the stuff that you're gonna deal with, you cannot predict. So just understanding that and the expectations, I think it's gonna give you a lot of clarity. You cannot control this. You cannot control. I'll give you an example. Maybe it's not the same, but you know, I live in Ashkelon. I don't know what's gonna happen. We don't know, and we still have terrorists roaming around the city, like we just caught 2 or 3 or 5 of them last night, okay? So it's not safe. I cannot control what the terrorists are going to do. I cannot control Hamas. I cannot control their humanity. What I can control is if I can keep my son and I safe or not. So what we do is we go and we sleep at my parents' house. I leave my house every night and I sleep with my parents because there's safety in numbers. That's all I can control. What I can do is I can complain about it, or I can say, wow, I'm having quality time with my parents. I'm 50 years old. I'm actually enjoying my parents right now. Okay, not everybody does, right? Who wants to live with their parents when you're 50? But you got to look at it and say, I control the things that I can control, and I can also decide how to reframe it. I am not running away from my house. I am keeping safe. I am not fighting with you over Israel or Palestine. We are talking about humanity. And what is the next step for us? Reframe. Always reframe. Hopefully, this will give you some kind of a helpful, platform to be able to work some of it. The atmosphere in South Africa, I know, is not good. I know. I've heard a lot from it from the Jewish Agency, and we wanted to do a lot of trainings there, but right now it's such shaky, grounds. So my heart goes out to you. I know.
Yeah, thank you. We're finishing on our time. So I saw David Reifman raising his hand earlier. So I want to give that. I want to say again, we're going to do more of these, which I'm very happy to see. I'm not happy to see they're relevant. I'm happy to see we can offer this service of relevance. I wish this wasn't needed. So David, please go ahead.
We're hearing stories now about schools in New York considering closing school tomorrow because of a called action by international Hamas and Palestinian supporters have an international day of action. I'm interested to know from either you, Ayelet, or maybe from someone from the Ministry of Diaspora, what is for each school, they have to develop their own situation between security of their students, and they have to make a decision. But I'm wondering also collectively what message it sends when schools are beginning to make these decisions as well. And for all of us, when one school does something, it does affect all of us. I think no matter where we are in the world, it's easy for us to say the terrorists win every time we close a school. There's also personal and family and safety and security of our children. So I'm wondering how you'd respond to hearing stories of that, which I'm just beginning to hear coming from New York, and I imagine other places as well.
Can I answer this for a really quick one, just as an example? Every time we have a round of war here, because we always do, every 2 months, 3 months, we have war. And we tell our kids, stay home, stay at the bomb shelter. The streets are not safe. The school is not safe. Nothing is safe. We keep them home. We close everything down for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. And then once there's ceasefire, we need to make that decision. Is it safe to go to school or not? Is it safe to open those schools or not? Now, this is the most difficult decision possible. Very difficult because you feel like you are responsible for that. I, for once, and this is just my opinion, and right now when I say it, I don't represent anybody or anything, just myself as an Israeli that lives here. I think the message is very important. I think the message is super duper important. I would have kept the school open, and if someone doesn't feel safe, they should not come. But allow people that feel that they can go, because the message is right now the psychological damage that Hamas is doing, is inflicting, is working. If I have 1 minute, Asaf, think about it this way. On a military level, is there anybody here that thinks that we can't win this? They caught us by surprise. Yes, I know. Okay, fine. Is there anybody here that thinks that we don't have this? The Israelis can and will demolish them. No doubt about it. On a psychological level, they are winning. On a psychological level, right now, we are losing the battle. They're getting to you. They're getting to your kids. They're getting to us. They're getting to our kids. They're getting everywhere. On a psychological level, we haven't won anything yet. So when you ask yourself, and I'm going to go back to my advice, what is my goal on a short-term level and on a long-term level? What is my goal? And my goal is that psychologically, they will not be able to win this. That's why the message right now is important. Not because I want to play, and risk anybody. It's because what is your message? My goal is for my kid not to be scared. And even if he's scared, to be able to do it. Courage is defined by being scared and taking action. Courage is not defined by just taking action. Being courageous is being scared and doing something about it anyway. Resiliency means we are facing a challenge and we're right there with it. That's resiliency. And it's not just a tagline that everybody, seems to be throwing around these days. So my advice, keep it open, get security, make a stance, keep your kids safe, and let people decide what they want to do. Listen, they're terrified right now. The U.S. is on them. I want to see them dare do something in the U.S. The U.S. is not Israel. Everybody carries a gun. In Israel, we can't protect ourselves. I don't have a gun at home. I can't protect myself. That's just my little messages in Israeli, and I don't know if I answered it or not, but I think.
Thank you, Ayelet. No, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to finish. I wanna give Margarita again. She asked to say one last sentence, and then I'll finish this off. And but before I do that, Ayelet, I want to say thank you so much for your meaningful, impactful experience, expertise, the tools you gave us. We're going to talk on Sunday, and we're going to come back to this group and many more groups and talk and give them more tools. Thank you so much. Margarita, please. You're muted. Daniel, can we give Margarita a chance to speak?
I'm unmuted. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll just add one single sentence before Asaf concludes. I just want to David's point, which I see is not here anymore, but to David's point, he is here. Okay, I do see him now. I just wanted to say that the other head of the ministry is dealing with anti-Semitism and community resilience. That is not my department, but if that's something you think is relevant and you also feel that's something you would want the ministry to be involved in and discuss as well, would be very happy to organize something like another forum like that, in that forum that we can bring our professionals from the anti-Semitism and the community resilience unit to give a briefing as well, anything you think is relevant for your community. So just let us know if that's something there's demand for.
Thank you, Margarita. I just want to finish off by saying thank you again, and by saying that we're here for you. We're very happy that you're here for us. It's amazing. It's unbelievable. It's the Jewish people at their best, but we're here for you. The ministry, us united, our job is to help you in whatever way you need. And if right now this means we talk more about trauma and about how to have political conversations at school, then that's what we'll do at United. and we're working on it. And hopefully, in the start of next week, we'll already have news for you. And whatever you need, please contact us and let us know what you need and how we can help you to be the best school you can be for your community. With that, I want to end with Am Yisrael Chai, and I want to thank you all and say good night.